Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the National Press Theater. My name is JP Tasker. I'm a reporter at CBC News, and I'll be our moderator for today's press conference. Before we begin, we have a few important preventative measures to share, so just bear with me as I read them. To prevent disruptive and potentially harmful audio feedback incidents that can cause injuries, we remind all in-person participants to keep their earpieces away from all microphones at all times. When you are not using your earpiece, please place it face down on the middle of the sticker for this purpose that you will find on the table. These measures are in place so that we can protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters, and conduct our business without interruption. Thank you all for your cooperation. Merci à tous pour votre coopération. So now we have Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland with us today, and also the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, Randy Boissonnault, and the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada, Arif Virani, for a presentation about the government's economic plan. Over to you, Ministers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, JP. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Bienvenue à la première conférence de presse sur l'économie de la saison. Je vais parler de l'économie canadienne et des nouvelles règles hypothécaires. Le ministre Virani parlera du nouveau cadre pour protéger les locataires et les acheteurs des maisons. Enfin, le ministre Boissonnault discutera de ce que ces nouvelles règles hypothécaires signifieront pour les jeunes travailleurs et pour les familles à travers le Canada. Before diving into the new mortgage rules, I'd just like to say a couple of words about the Canadian economy. We've had some positive news over the past few months. We have now had inflation down within the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row, and in July, inflation hit a 40-month low. We've seen the Bank of Canada lead the G7 in cutting interest rates. Canada has now been the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the first time, the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the second time, and the first G7 country to cut interest rates for the third time. It looks as if a soft landing is in sight. We've now seen wages outpacing inflation for 18 months in a row. That is really important for hardworking Canadians because it means their paychecks have more purchasing power. And the IMF is predicting that Canada's GDP will be the fastest growing in the G7 in 2025. That brings me to my announcement today about mortgages and mortgage rules. For our government, housing is a priority because it's a priority for Canadians. And that's why in the budget, we put forward the most ambitious plan since the Second World War to build more homes faster. A big part of that plan is to have more purpose-built rental, to have more affordable housing. Another key element of that plan is ensuring that young Canadians who want to buy a home can do that the dream of home ownership remains in reach for our younger generations. And that's why we're making some really significant changes today. Premièrement, nous augmentons le plafond de prix pour les prêts hypothécaires assurés de $1 million à 1,5 million de dollars à compter du 15 décembre cette année. Et pourquoi? Parce que le plafond actuel de $1 million remonte à 2012. Et l'économie canadienne, le marché canadien a changé beaucoup. Ce changement permet à un plus grand nombre de Canadiennes et Canadiens de se qualifier pour un prêt hypothécaire avec une mise de fonds inférieure à 20%. So we are raising the level for insured mortgages from 1 million to 1.5 million. The 1 million level was set in 2012. Since then, Canada's nominal GDP has increased by 65%. It was time to look at that number. And that is a change that is going to have a real impact for thousands, even millions of Canadians. It is going to put the dream of home ownership in reach for more young Canadians. Second change that we're making, we're expanding 30-year amortizations for insured mortgages. In the budget in the spring, we announced that 30-year amortizations would be available for first-time home buyers buying new-built homes effective August 1st. Today, we are announcing that 30-year amortizations on insured mortgages will be available for all first-time home buyers. This really is about fairness for every generation. It's about making that first home more available for young Canadians, for first-time home buyers. The second change we're making in the insured market is we're saying that for all buyers of newly built homes in the insured space, 30-year amortizations will be available. This is really, at heart, a supply-side measure. This is about creating more demand for new builds because we know that, crucially, Canada needs to get more homes built faster. In order to get those homes built faster, more people need to be there buying them. That's what this change is going to permit. Both of those changes are effective December 15th. I do want to point out that these measures build on our huge housing plan announced in the budget in the spring. They build on our plan to get 4 million homes built. They build on our tax-free first home savings account. More than 750,000 Canadians, young Canadians, people who don't have a first home yet, have opened those accounts. We are now taking the next step and making it easier for people who are saving so hard for that down payment to buy their first home. These measures build on our Canadian Mortgage Charter. I do want to point out, because over the summer I talked to a lot of people who are concerned as their mortgages come up for renewal. In the Mortgage Charter, we allowed all holders of insured mortgages to switch lenders at renewal without another mortgage stress test. That's because we want people at renewal who are already under a lot of pressure, who are already really concerned, to have maximum flexibility, to have the ability to shop around for the deal that works for them and their family. We are also today releasing blueprints for the Home Buyers Bill of Rights and the Renters Bill of Rights. And that is what we're going to hear from Minister Virani about in a minute. Je veux juste souligner que l'annonce aujourd'hui est vraiment important pour tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Ce sont les mesures visées à construire plus de logements plus vite partout au Canada. Et ce sont les mesures visées à créer l'équité entre les générations, à permettre les jeunes Canadiens à avoir cet rêve canadien et acheter leur première maison. Et je passe maintenant la parole à mon cher collègue, le ministre Arif Virani.
Merci, Chrystia. Thank you very much. What I wanted to pick up on is where Chrystia had left off, so where Minister Freeland had left off. What we're talking about when we talk about fairness for every generation is ensuring that rights are protected. As Minister of Justice, obviously that is fundamental to my role at the cabinet table and my role in serving all Canadians. What we find is important is ensuring that there's a level playing field when you're trying to rent a place to live or to actually get to the stage of buying a home. That's why we are working to protect the rights of renters and of home buyers. We're doing this through what we call the Renters Bill of Rights and the Home Buyers Bill of Rights that Minister Freeland just mentioned and that were first announced in Budget 2024. Aujourd'hui, nous publions les plans directs de ces deux documents tellement importants. Ils fournissent des détails sur la manière dont les locataires et les acheteurs seront protégés Cela signifie une standardisation des contrats de location et une plus grande transparence dans la tarification des loyers. Pour les acheteurs, cela signifie rendre le processus d'un achat d'une maison moins compliqué, plus transparent et, nous l'espérons, beaucoup moins stressant. Fully implemented, the Bill of Rights would protect renters from things like rent evictions, make sales price history available on title searches, protect potential buyers from blind bidding, and much more. Of course, implementation requires working with the provinces and territories, and we are very happy to do that. Chrystia mentioned she'd been talking to a lot of constituents in her own riding and around the country. I've been doing exactly the same, and I'm sure Minister Boissonnault has been doing exactly the same. What we've heard repeatedly is that the efficacy of federal programs require direction and firmness when we're dealing with provincial and territorial partners. You should know that with our negotiations over what is now a $6 billion package on the Canada Housing and Infrastructure Fund, we are bringing these measures to life. And what I mean by that is that accessing that level of funding, a $6 billion pool of funds, through the Housing Infrastructure Fund, in order to access that funding, you will have to play ball with us effectively on implementing things such as the Renters' Bill of Rights and the Homeowners' Bill of Rights. When the goal overall is making the housing market fairer across the country, every one of us has to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work of turning important ideas like these into concrete policies that will protect the rights of renters and buyers alike. I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Minister Boissonnault. Randy?
Merci, Arif. Merci beaucoup, Vice-Premier ministre Chrystia Freeland. Bonjour tout le monde. Très content d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui, première journée de retour au Parlement. You know, I'm the Minister of Jobs, but I'm also the Minister of Students. And if you think about what we're announcing today, it's going to make it easier for students to put that vision of home ownership much closer into reality. Because, look, when I was growing up, I turned 54 this summer. When I was growing up, it was get a job, study hard, get a trade, get a job, and you'll be able to do at least as well as your parents, if not better. That was the promise of Canada. And for too many Gen X and for too many Gen Z millennials, that seems like a faraway promise now. And our job and what we've been working on solidly and consistently is to make that dream not just of home ownership, but of actually making ends meet and having money left over at the end of the month to do the things you want to do. That's really important for our government. It's important for Canadians, and it's important for 50% of our workforce now, made up of Gen Z and millennials. Et donc, c'est pas seulement dommage, ça ne devrait pas être le cas, que les jeunes trouvent que c'est plus difficile que leurs parents de joindre les deux bouts. Et ça, c'est pourquoi nous sommes à l'action. Ça, c'est pourquoi les annonces de Chrystia aujourd'hui sont tellement importantes. C'est aussi pourquoi nous sommes à l'action avec les provinces et les municipalités pour faire certain qu'on peut tous aller dans la même direction pour attaquer le coût de la vie, mais aussi pour rendre la question d'appartenance d'une maison, d'un logement, une réalité. And you know, my nephew he's going to turn 23 soon. And his name is Ethan, and my niece, Skylar, just turned 22. And at Thanksgiving, Ethan said, Uncle Randy, what's that thing you have to save for a house? What's it called? And so I walked him through the tax-free savings account. And so he said, okay, I'm going to have a house by the time I'm 30. And he puts pipe together. That's what he does. And he's a laborer. He's a tradesperson. And then his sister, Skylar, who's taking graphic design, said, I'm going to race you. They have this healthy competition now with siblings to see how they're going to do it. Well, the announcement today just made the down payment easier. They're probably not going to get $1 million, $1.5 million place in Edmonton, but the fact that they can now, with a new build or a first-time home buyer, have easier access to getting that home makes their competition real and might even shave a year off the date that they can actually get that house done. So what is important is when you add to that the fact that we did automatic enrollment in the Canada Learning Bond, that we have increased student financial aid assistance, that we've made it easier for mature students to get loans, that we've permanently removed the interest on federal student loans. And then you talk about the fact that we have a robust plan on the housing side to get accelerated construction on rental units, that we are serious about the Housing Accelerator Fund. And I've seen the difference in my own city, in Edmonton. Last year, we had about 6,500 housing starts. This year, over 10,000, and the number's going up. And that's what people want to see us deliver on. On a aussi le plan national de soins dentaires, aussi le plan national pour les médicaments qui aident tous et chacun avec leur facture à la fin de la journée. And so we're taking the action that we need to. And Arif, you're right. I was on the doors many times this summer. And you know what people said to me? They said they couldn't believe how much money they saved when they enrolled their first child in daycare. So, like literally, in Alberta, $10,000 for that first child. So, you know what they said? They said, thank the Deputy Prime Minister, thank Chrystia when you see her, because it was your idea. You got it over the goal line. We did it as a team, and it's changing lives in Edmonton, in Alberta, and across the country. And today, we've changed more lives.
OK, on est prêt. Merci, Randy. Et on est prêt à répondre à vos questions.
Okay, yeah, we'll turn now to the question period. We'll do one question, one follow-up, and we'll try and squeeze as many people as we can in. And we'll start with Ryan Tumulty, The National Post. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Minister. The changes you're announcing today are effectively going to allow people to borrow more for homes and potentially pay more for homes. Are you worried that, especially given we have a housing affordability crisis, that this is just going to jack up prices further and put homes further out of reach?
Thank you for the question. And we have spent the summer talking first and foremost with Canadians, especially young Canadians, about the dream of homeownership. In designing these measures, we also spoke to a lot of economists. We spoke to a lot of housing specialists. We spoke to a lot of people in the financial sector. And really what this is all about is, one, putting the dream of homeownership in reach for younger Canadians, giving first-time home buyers a leg up in the housing market. Currently, they're at a disadvantage. With these measures, first-time home buyers are going to be in a stronger position. We think that's the right thing to do. Second of all, I would really draw people's attention to the new build aspect of these measures. Our plan is based on getting 4 million new homes built, and we have put a lot of measures in place to make that happen. The Housing Accelerator Fund, which is cutting red tape, getting more homes built faster in municipalities across the country. Our concessionary finance for purpose-built rental, our public land announcement. But one of the things that we are hearing from people seeking to build new builds for purchase is they need a market. They need buyers of those newly built homes and condos. And by raising the amortization period specifically for new builds, that is also going to be a further measure that creates more supply. And then finally, on the increase to the size of the insured market, I think this is really a question of recognizing economic reality. The last time that level was set was 2012. It was set at $1 million then. Since 2012, Canada's GDP has increased by, nominal GDP has increased by 65%. Our GDP in the second quarter of 2012 was $1.82 trillion. Today, it is $3 trillion. And so it makes sense to raise that level.
And then just following up, in the Liberal platform, in the Supply and Confidence Agreement, the Homebuyers Bill of Rights was pitched as also an end to blind bidding. In this document you posted today, it says you're going to examine the implementation of blind and open bidding approaches. That feels watered down from the commitment in the Liberal platform. That doesn't sound like ending blind bidding. I'm just wondering why you brought that back.
I'll say one thing that maybe Arif wants to. Thanks for focusing attention on blind bidding. I would say in our blueprint on the Homebuyers Bill of Rights, the key elements for me are protecting people from blind bidding, being sure that people have can see the whole sales history of the home that they're buying, and enforcing at a local level taxes against speculation, against vacant property. As you know very well, Canada is a federation, and very many measures in housing require collaboration between the federal government, provinces, and municipalities. That is really true when it comes to housing. And so in publishing this blueprint, what we're saying is we are going to be working with provinces and municipalities to make that happen. Ending blind bidding is a real priority for us. And as you heard from Arif, in the budget, we put forward a tool to help us achieve that. And that is the $6 billion Housing Infrastructure Fund. We were very clear when we announced that provinces have until the end of the year to sign on to that. It's a $6 billion fund. $1 billion goes directly to the municipalities. $5 billion, we hope we'll be able to negotiate with the provinces to send that money their way. But if we're unable to, by January 1st, we'll channel that money to the municipalities. And that's going to be one way that we have some leverage to protect Canadians from blind bidding. You want to add anything, Arif?
I would just simply add that, I mean, if you think about the precarious nature of a person who's buying their first home, it's a stressful procedure. You're purchasing something that's going to be your biggest asset, clearly up to that point in your life and probably beyond. And the pressures that are involved, the stress that's involved, you heard Minister Freeland reference that. We're trying to just reduce that stress by creating greater transparency. And I think it was a genuine question that was put to us that you're wading into an area of city and provincial jurisdiction, which this clearly is because we're identifying a national problem that doesn't know provincial or city boundaries, but that's why we're being very directive with that Canada infrastructure funding. And by having that carrot, there's $5 billion waiting to be accessed, but by coupling it with a very ambitious initiative, we believe we're going to have compliance with the provinces and the cities. And that's absolutely what we are seeking, because blind bidding does not serve the individuals who are purchasing. It serves the vendors and others. It does not serve the individual purchasers. And those are the people that Randy was talking about, his niece and nephew, and so many others like them around the country. Thanks.
Louis Blouin, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, une question pour Mme Freeland. On est en journée d'élection partielle. Le Parti libéral du Canada a perdu Toronto-Saint-Paul en juin. Ce soir, Verdun, LaSalle-Emard-Verdun, un autre test important pour votre formation politique. Si vous perdez ce soir, est-ce que, d'après vous, Justin Trudeau a encore la légitimité pour rester comme chef? Est-ce que ce ne serait pas la preuve qu'il est devenu véritablement un boulet pour vous, pas seulement en Ontario, mais là, au Québec aussi?
Nous avons juste eu un excellent caucus national et on est tous convaincus que notre leader, c'est Justin Trudeau. Il est le leader de notre gouvernement, il est le leader de notre parti et il sera notre leader pendant la prochaine campagne électorale nationale. Concernant l'élection partielle, nous avons une excellente candidate, Madame Laura Palestini. Elle est vraiment une femme qui travaille sur le terrain. Elle était une conseillère municipale. Tout le monde à LaSalle-Verdun connaît Madame Palestini et on est convaincu qu'elle fera un excellent travail pour les gens-là. Just had a really good National Caucus meeting, and I think all of us left that meeting absolutely committed to supporting Justin Trudeau as the leader of our government, as the leader of our party, and as the leader who will lead our party in the next federal election. When it comes to the by-election today, many of us have spent time with Laura Palestini. She is a fantastic candidate. She has been a local council representative for the people of that community. She is incredibly knowledgeable. She is incredibly hardworking. She is really plugged into that community. And we really know that she would make an excellent representative for people there.
Ma question de suivi pour M. Virani sur la question de l'aide médicale à mourir. Le Québec a décidé d'aller de l'avant avec les demandes anticipées. On instruit le directeur des poursuites criminelles et pénales au Québec de tenir en compte du consensus québécois, de ne pas prendre des actions qui iraient contre ce consensus-là. Ma question, elle est simple. Est-ce que vous allez intervenir, soit en modifiant le code criminel, soit en déposant un recours contre la loi québécoise, ou est-ce que vous allez aller de l'avant avec le statu quo? Je pense qu'il y a des médecins au Québec qui aimeraient avoir une réponse claire à cette question-là.
Donc, ça touche un aspect qui est assez important. Lorsqu'on touche aide médicale à mourir, et les aspects qui sont en jeu sont extrêmement importants. Donc, on a fait jusqu'à date une démarche assez patiente, assez avec prudence pour développer aide médicale à mourir au début et pour élargir l'aspect de aide médicale à mourir après notre début en 2016, avec 2019 et avec ce qu'on vient de faire vis-à-vis l'expansion ou non. Ce que je peux souligner, c'est qu'on comprend la situation au Québec, on comprend la volonté des Québécois et Québécoises, on comprend la volonté du gouvernement de Premier Legault, première chose. Deuxième chose, c'est qu'il faut toujours collaborer avec les médecins, comme vous venez de mentionner, les experts et les professionnels dans la situation, et ça inclut pas juste les médecins et les stakeholders qui existent au Québec, mais partout au Canada. Parce que c'est ça l'aspect et le processus qu'on a suivi jusqu'à date. C'était une démarche nationale pour tous les pays et il faut continuer avec cette démarche-là. Il faut toujours souligner que vis-à-vis de la Constitution canadienne, la juridiction vis-à-vis le code criminel, c'est une juridiction qui appartient au niveau fédéral. On a simplement une code criminel partout au Canada et on a toujours gardé ça comme un aspect qui unifie le pays comme tel. Donc, ceci dit, je suis toujours ouvert à la conversation avec le Premier Legault, avec Simon Jolin Barrette, avec le ministre de la Santé au Québec. Ma collègue, ministre Holland, le ministre de la Santé pour le Canada, est toujours ouvert à des conversations. On a déjà eu des conversations. On va continuer de suivre la situation. Ce qu'ils ont annoncé le 7 septembre, c'était qu'ils vont ouvrir la porte à ces demandes anticipées dès le 30 octobre, si je me rappelle bien. On est en train d'engager avec les Québécois et les Québécoises et avec le gouvernement pour faire des conversations, pour comprendre leur volonté et pour répondre à ce qu'ils veulent. Donc, vous n'avez pas décidé. On est en train de discuter ça, pas juste avec le peuple du Québec, mais avec tous les autres partenaires partout au Canada, et especially avec les autres gouvernements, pour vérifier, par exemple, excusez-moi, je cherche des fois des mots en français, mais their state of readiness, par exemple, vis-à-vis les demandes anticipées. Parce que vous savez qu'il y a des aspects en jeu qui sont extrêmement importants. Si on donne une volonté, une permission, une approbation ici en 2024, mais si les circonstances arrivent en 23 ou 2031, est-ce qu'on peut toujours vérifier si la volonté reste la même? Est-ce que la personne est consciente en ce moment-là pour donner la volonté finale, par exemple? Donc, il y a plusieurs aspects qu'il faut régler. Il faut le régler d'une façon prudente parce que l'enjeu est extrêmement important. Les droits là-dedans sont extrêmement importants et les décisions sont effectivement finales, especially dans aide médicale à mourir.
Thank you. Jordan Gowling, Financial Post, please.
Hi, Minister Freeland. Is your government considering, or has it ever considered, a home equity tax on primary residence over a certain value? I think the Prime Minister's appearance on a podcast with a certain think tank this summer has sort of raised questions on whether you're considering that policy.
Absolutely not.
And just following up on the economy, you said we've received some positive news on inflation, but we've also gotten some weakening data over the summer. Unemployment's ticked up, GDP per capita is declining, productivity is declining. Are you concerned at all about the state of the economy?
We've always known that the tool the Bank of Canada has been using to fight inflation, which is high interest rates, was designed to slow the economy down. That's how raising interest rates to fight inflation works. The bank has been very clear about that, and we've seen the impact. The positive news for Canadians is that inflation has now been within the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row. That is really good news. It's good news when it comes to people buying their groceries. And it's also good news because that inflation dynamic has allowed the bank to lower interest rates not once, not twice, but 3 times. And that is really good news for Canadians. It's good news for the people that we are focused on today, people who have a mortgage or people who have an ambition to buy a home. There's a lot of anxiety around mortgage renewals, and the fact that the bank has been lowering interest rates is really important for those people. A metric we really look at closely is what's happening with wages. And that's why I emphasized at the outset that wages have been outpacing inflation for 18 months in a row. Also good news for Canada and Canadians. But you're certainly right, Jordan, to point out that high interest rates have been working as they're intended to do. They have been a brake on the Canadian economy. That brake, the pressure on that brake is easing. But we're not at the neutral rate of interest yet, so the brake is still in place. And that's why it's such good news for Canadians that inflation has been within the target range for 7 months in a row.
Okay, next, Joy Spear Chief Morris from the Toronto Star, please.
Hi, so I have a question. When can we expect a fiscal economic statement, and is the plan for the government to be delaying to be putting off any government spending bills to delay a potential confidence vote?
We don't have any announcement to make today about the timing of a fall economic statement, but our intention is to present a fall economic statement this fall. We don't have an announcement about that today.
And then a follow-up question is, the government has been very critical of Pierre Poilievre's rhetoric and political style, but your colleagues have been recently calling him now a liar, and this morning was a fraud. So just how do you square that with the position you've taken in the past?
I think that it is really important for us as the government and also for us as Liberals to be really clear with Canadians about what the Conservative Party is saying, about what it is standing for, and about the veracity or not of the statements of the Conservative leader and of Conservative MPs. We owe that to Canadians, and we are going to continue to be first and foremost focused on Canada and Canadians, focused on what do Canadians need right now and what can we do to make their lives better. Today is an example of that. We were all in our communities this summer. We all traveled across Canada, and we heard from young people, I really want to buy my first home. For me, the strongest data point there is 750,000 Canadians, actually more than 750,000 Canadians, have already opened a tax-free first home savings account. That means 750,000 people who are putting up their hand and saying, I really want to buy a place to live. We support that. That is people believing in saving every day for their future, saving for Canada. And what people have also said to us is, it's still too hard. And so today we're putting forward concrete, practical, specific measures that are going to make it easier for young Canadians to buy that first home by offering them 30-year amortizations, by raising the level from $1 million to $1.5 million of the insured mortgage market. And at the same time, we're creating another incentive to get more homes built faster by allowing 30-year amortizations for new builds. So that is about talking to Canadians, listening to Canadians, hearing Canadians, and responding to their needs. And that is the overwhelming focus of our government. And even as we do that, it's important for us to make clear to Canadians what to make clear to Canadians what the official opposition stands for. We'll keep on doing that.
Okay, Mike Lecouture, CTV.
Minister, how are you? I wanted to know if at any point this I wanted to know if at any point this summer you had discussions with the Prime Minister to be replaced in your portfolio as Finance Minister or to drop your portfolio as Finance Minister.
I did not.
Thank you. As a follow-up, we're seeing David Eby in BC saying that if the federal government drops their federal backstop and the consumer price on carbon tax, that they would follow and do the same. Do you feel like there's eroding support for the consumer side of the carbon tax in Canada right now?
So our government is very clear about the facts. And the fact is that in provinces where the federal backstop is in place, the price on pollution means more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. And at a time when affordability is still a challenge for many Canadians, that is really important, and that is good news for Canada and Canadians. What I am also seeing as Finance Minister is that our price on pollution increasingly is the underpinning of investments in the Canadian economy. Canada, on a per capita basis, led the world last year in foreign direct investment. And our price on pollution, our climate plan, is a very big part of that. I think some of my colleagues might also want to comment.
Just with respect to Premier Eby and also with Jagmeet Singh, you're seeing two very senior New Democrat leaders resile from what is the single strongest market-based mechanism to address pollution and to reduce carbon. This has been recognized by economists around the planet, let alone economists in this country. It is also, I would say, fairly astonishing as a climb down from a BC leader, because it was a BC government that put in place Canada's first initiatives in terms of pricing carbon. And that was, I think, if my numbers are correct, going back to 2008. So this has been in an area where the people of BC and their governments have led on. It is certainly an area that we've enjoyed strong cooperation from the NDP, but it is a little bit amazing, if I may say so, to watch a leader or a set of leaders that are scrambling for what they seem to be strategic or partisan gain, really just eschewing their principles and just putting them aside in terms of the significant requirements that are needed for the fight against environmental change and the fight against climate change. And what we know is exactly what Minister Freeland just said, is that all this does in its most simplistic form is it reduces pollution and puts money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. It is that simple and that elegant a solution. And the fact that Premier Eby and Jagmeet Singh are no longer recognizing that, to me, is a sacrifice in terms of their principles. And I'm struggling to understand how they've taken that position. I'm struggling to understand the efficacy, and I'm also struggling to understand how they can be answerable to their own constituents with respect to the pressing need to take action on climate.
Arif, I was at a bunch of community leagues this weekend in Edmonton. It's a particular nuance of life in Edmonton. And I was talking with people, and they said, what is going on with the New Democrats backing away from backing up climate change? And I said, well, look, it's pretty simple. You're seeing Jagmeet Singh cave under pressure from Pierre Poilievre. And my riding, Mike, Edmonton Centre, think about that. Like, the TMX pipeline starts outside of my city, and yet a 65% progressive riding, even in the middle of the pandemic. What was the number one issue when I was talking to residents in the 2021 election, coming out of the pandemic and in the pandemic and since 2015? Climate change, climate change, climate change. Make sure we have a planet that our kids and our grandkids can grow up in. It's the number one thing that I hear from Gen Zs. It's the number one thing that I hear from millennials. And quite frankly, the fact that we took a conservative market-based measure, added a rebate on it so that it would make sense for consumers, and 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back because of the Canada Carbon rebate. Even Danielle Smith said she gets more, and that she got more when we doubled the rural top-up. It is a no-brainer policy. It is smart economics. And get this, I spoke with 3 business owners this weekend who cannot believe that their entire business model is now at risk because of decisions by David Eby and decisions by Jagmeet Singh to not hold the line and to not actually follow through on commitments we made to business owners and to Canadians that we would have their backs when it comes to smart climate policy. So who will stick up for Gen Zs? Who will stick up for millennials? Who will stick up for the planet? The Liberal government, the Liberal Party will, because clearly Jagmeet Singh will not.
Brian Platt, Bloomberg.
Hi, Minister Freeland. In the spring budget, you on 30-year amortizations, you took a small, like a very narrowly targeted step, and presumably the news today opens up a lot more Canadians to get access to these 30-year amortizations. So do you have an estimate of how many more people will be affected, will have access now to 30-year amortizations? And why did you not do this in the spring budget? Were you worried about the effect it may have? Were there concerns about supercharging the housing market at that time?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian, for the question. And I do want to, say to you and underscore for everyone, these are big moves. This is a very significant step when it comes to mortgages and amortization. It's something that we have thought through and worked through very carefully. And, it's important to be thoughtful and careful in this space, and we are, and we have been. In the budget in the spring, the most important thing there was our commitment to supply, and to put in place the plan to have 4 million homes built. We think that is, the absolute foundation and cornerstone to fixing the housing crisis in Canada. And we have been acting on it, right? You've seen the Housing Accelerator Fund, $4 billion there. It has, I think, really driven a transformation in the attitude towards housing, towards density, towards red tape, towards regulation across the country. That's one element of getting more homes built faster. The public land announcement that we made a couple of weeks ago, another critical element of creating the place where more homes can get built faster, and really making much more money available at concessional rates to build purpose-built rental. More homes built, we absolutely need that. So in order for us to take the action that we've taken today, we needed to have a plan to have more homes be built and be available. We started in the summer, we started in the budget effective August 1st with the overlapping Venn diagram of two areas that we really want to support. One is first-time home buyers. I think it's at this point a truth universally acknowledged in Canada that we need generational fairness. We need to help millennials. We need to help Gen Z. Canada needs to be a place where the dream of homeownership is alive, where a young person who has a job, has a trade, has a degree, is working hard, is one of those 750,000 people who has opened a first home savings account, has a realistic chance to buy a home. And so, we said as of August 1, we're going to give you a longer amortization for buying a new build, because we also really want to continue to have incentives for builders to build. That's what it's all about. What we've seen as we have looked at our supply measures taking shape at a real effective plan to get more homes built faster, and as we have seen the real need for young Canadians to get access to that first home, is we've said we can now build on those initial measures. And we can say to young Canadians, to first-time home buyers, that we're going to offer you a 30-year amortization on insured mortgages. We want you to be able to get your first, take that first step on the housing ladder. And we want to give you an advantage in the housing market relative to people who already have a home. And then, and I think this is really a crucial element of the plan, is we want people to be building more homes faster in Canada. And for them to do that, it's critical that there be buyers out there for those homes. And that's why we're targeting all buyers of new build homes. In terms of numbers, as things stand, first-time home buyers are roughly 19-20% of the market. New builds, roughly 4%.
As you know, over the past decade, the benchmark home prices about doubled. What you're messaging today is you're making it easier for people to get access to more expensive mortgages, to take on bigger mortgages. You're making it easier for people. So is your message also that especially to younger Canadians and first-time homebuyers, prices are not coming back down. Prices are never coming back down, so we're making it easier for you to buy more expensive homes?
I would sort of disagree with how you framed the question, Brian, with due respect. In terms of the change in the where the insured mortgage market, how high it goes, I think that's just a recognition of economic reality. And the number that we really looked at was the size of the Canadian economy, the size of GDP. And, I cited the numbers earlier. In the second quarter of 2012, Canada's nominal GDP was $1.82 trillion. Second quarter of this year, nominal GDP was $3 trillion. That's a 65% increase. And so it just makes sense that the level of the insured mortgage market first set in 2012, it needs to keep up with the increase in the size of the Canadian economy. That's what we've done.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. They're telling me the ministers have to go, so thank you very much for coming and participating in this. Ministers, have a good day. Everybody else, enjoy the first day back. Thank you.
Thank you.